Welcome to another edition of Trillium Talk TV. Something different, something better. Tonight I'm joined by Bob Yaciuk. Bob is leader of the Trillium Party. He's also a candidate for the Trillium Party in Newmarket, Aurora. Bob, thank you for being on Trillium Talk TV.
And awesome to be here again. I love this show. I love this venue, the opportunity to talk to, real people about what's going on in politics in a real down-to-earth manner. And, what do we got going on this week?
Well, it appears that the 101st Airborne Division has deployed. The Conservatives are parachuting candidates into 11 different ridings.
My God. They're going to need a few extra planes because we thought Patrick Brown was pretty bad about dropping candidates in here and there. Wow. I mean, Doug Ford is he the new Patrick Brown? I mean, he has dropped 11 candidates in. Oh, well. And it seems like if you're very, very important in their view and you have very important backers, then you get to have a good job or potential for a good job in the future. Too bad you don't live in the riding. Oh, that's irrelevant, though. Who do we have? Who are some of the big ones?
Well, there's Caroline Mulroney.
Does she have? Where's she from? Why do everyone know Caroline? Oh, that's right. Former Prime Minister, PC Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. Anyone else? Who else would be a good candidate that shouldn't have any opposition to learn their get the stripes for? Oh, that's right. Christine Elliott. Now she's actually running against me. She was Jim Flaherty's wife. And Jim Flaherty was a good man there. Where does Christine Elliott live?
I think she lives in Whitby.
How close is that to Newmarket, Aurora? We got.
Are we talking about road access,
time, right?
or as the crow flies?
With the condition of some of the highways going on right now, about 200 hours. But let's be realistic here. Whitby is about an hour and small change away from Newmarket, Aurora. How does somebody like that even have the audacity to say they're going to run here? Oh, I know. She was appointed. She was parachuted in. Anyone that wanted to oppose her was told to, well, would you mind letting her come in? She doesn't have no connection to Newmarket, Aurora. Never has, never will. In fact, I don't think that matters because she's forced to vote for whatever Doug Ford tells her to vote for anyway. So it's irrelevant of what the constituents want around here.
You may as well just have blue fence posts in all of the ridings because they're all just going to vote the same way. It does not make a difference at all. Unless, of course, their name has some star power.
Who else? Here. I'm looking at my monitor right now, and we have Mike Harris Jr. Now, this is the best one of all. And when I say best one of all, I mean the saddest one of all. There's 3 Mike Harrises involved in this. It's like a skit out of an Abbott and Costello, who's on third, who's on first, and nobody knows. There's Mike Harris, and Mike Harris. What do you mean by that, Bob? Well, Michael Harris, MPP, was a long-time sitting MPP member of provincial PC caucus out in the Waterloo region. Now, Michael Harris won by a landslide. He worked his butt off. In fact, Jack McLaren, former PC member, now Trillium Party member, says Michael Harris was probably the best caucus member they had. Now, Michael Harris is planning on running, and I believe it's in Waterloo, Conestoga.
It's the Cambridge region, I think.
Waterloo, Conestoga, up in that area. So he was put his name in to run, and he was informed that his candidacy was going to be denied. He was no longer welcome in the caucus, and this is because of text from over 6 years ago. The PC caucus, Doug Ford and his boys, his people, sat on a text for 6 years waiting for the prime time to use it. Okay, so now let's
now why is this the prime time to use that, Doug? What's happening? Are there any candidates who are just ripe to step into the void?
That is Mike Harris number 1. MPP Mike Harris, number 1. So he's saying, I want to serve my constituents. Constituents back me like crazy. So now, then there's Mike Harris, number 2, Mike Harris Jr. Now, that was Premier Mike Harris, or that is Premier Mike Harris's son. Now, get this. So Mike Harris' son, Mike Harris Jr., put out his best effort and lost a PC nomination just a couple weeks ago, I believe it is. And he lost his nomination, so he couldn't even win in the riding where he is. and he lost it. No problem. Phone calls are made, decisions are made, and so I have no proof that Mike Harris Sr., who's working with Doug Ford right now, did any influence here. I certainly don't have any proof of it, and I won't even imply it. However, Doug Ford says, hey, Mike, I know a place where you can run. Why don't you go into Michael Harris's riding and run there? In fact, you know what? In case there's competition, too tough a competition, why don't we just appoint you in there? So
and
you're not fight.
You're not going to imply that.
Did I just say that? Okay, I don't know how stupid you have to be to not figure this one out. So without any fight whatsoever, 3 heavy hitters, they did not have to prove their mettle at all. But Mike Harris Jr. was parachuted into Michael Harris's riding, where he has worked for so many years. Name recognition alone. Now, get this. So Michael Harris, when he was denied to run, he said he could have appealed it, and it would have been a battle, but we all know how all those appeals all work. So when he was denied, he said, okay, then I'm going to go for eye surgery and get some eye surgery done, but my wife is going to run in that area. Fair enough. This is democracy so far. And then they denied her the right to run as well. So if this is not Patrick Brown style, if this is not, well, same old, same old. They're all the same, and they're all to blame. And you know, I see a graphic on here, Doug Ford and Kathleen Wynne. They are the same. Let me define politics in Ontario, Greg. It goes like this. Oh, what we do is we vote for the PCs. PCs tick us off, and then we all hate the PCs, and then we vote for the Liberals. We learn those guys. Oh, and then the Liberals tick us off. And then you know what we do again? Oh, we go back and vote for the PCs until they tick us off. So,
except every once in a while, a Bob Ray sneaks in, and everybody gets days off at school.
And the economy goes down the toilet, and Bob Ray will never come back. If the NDP will never come back, because he was the single most destructive force that ever hit Ontario.
But
when I say he, I'm going to say the NDP, not Bob Ray, the NDP and their policies. They're anti-business. They're anti-success.
If you're between the ages of 6 and 18... you get days off in the middle of September. It's still nice outside. It's not really a snow day.
Well, we get days off until we can't afford to have days off anymore. And then, well, maybe everybody will have a day off because there'll be no jobs to go to. You know, that doesn't sound as nice when you think through it. It doesn't sound as nice as, well, it sounds.
But, Bob, I want to circle back to the whole... So basically, Mike Harris Jr. is being parachuted into the riding of Michael Harris just because of the name similarity, and he's going to cash in on the name recognition, and that's why the PCs supposedly have finally axed Michael Harris, the longtime MPP.
Can't say that for sure.
But you know, it's
one of the most effective PCs and members of provincial parliament there was. We say we don't want you anymore. What? Oh my gosh! And his name happens to be Mike Harris. Huh. Did you ever see that movie?
Well, hang on a sec, Bob. I just have to ask you a question. Would you consider changing your name to Franklin Cleese?
Franklin Cleese.
Come on. You would destroy Christine Elliott.
I would destroy Christine Elliott probably if I changed my name to Frank Cleese. But that being said, no, I do have my integrity, and that's kind of what the Trillium Party is all about. I will not do anything to win, because winning, if I have to parachute people into ridings, if I have to do nefarious ways, methodology in order to win, I will not do that, and no Trillium Party candidate will. You know, that makes us so unique, it's just off the charts, because there's only 2 types of candidates in my experience, all my years of political politics. There's 2 types of candidates. One, the candidate that is an idealist. Those people will... You know, they stand up for what's right, and, well, they'll die. It's like better to die standing up than serve on your knees. And then there's the other type, the opportunist. The one that figures all they have to do is trick people for about 6 weeks, and then they have a job for 4 years, and a ladder that can be climbed right up, and they can suck off the public coffers for 4 or 5 years. And that's not right. Those are the people we have to fight against. Those are the people that, well, often are parachuted in. Those are the privileged ones that don't have to scrap it out in a nomination battle. That's the battleground for democracy. is if the Constitution says, and the Liberal Party as well as the PC, the Constitution says they have to have these nomination runs. Most of those ridings had candidates that wanted to be considered to run. Why were they kicked to the side as though they meant nothing? They have one up in Barrie right now.
Because their parents or spouses weren't really, really famous. It stands to reason.
What stands to reason? That's right, or that's the way it is?
That's the way it is.
Well, I can't argue too much because apparently the evidence is pointing that way. You know, it's what I think. Stand up for what you believe is right, and if you want to run for office, every Canadian should be, every person in Ontario, Canadian person in Ontario, should be afforded the right to run. It's as simple as that. And you know what? If we wanted to have Caroline Mulroney, if we wanted to have Christine Elliott, if we wanted to have Mike Harris Jr. In office, put your name on the ballot. And all the people in the riding would say, hey, those people are awesome. I couldn't argue with that. I couldn't have this conversation with you then if they put their name on the ballot. But the fact is Mike Harris Jr. got his arse kicked in the nomination battle. Even with the high-powered dad, even with the party backing him, he got his arse kicked in a legitimate nomination process. But that doesn't stop that kind of action. All they just do is find another place to put him. And that's not right. That's wrong. That's what the PC's kicked out in the form of Patrick Brown. But do they have something worse? Maybe. At least at the Trillium Party of Ontario, we have something different, something better. I think over there they might have something different, something worse in the form of Doug Ford. We put a memo out one time, I think.
Well, hang on a sec.
Likes a new shiny Ford right until the recall notices start.
Fair enough, but we've got a comment from Facebook. This one's from Jan Hansen. I, for one, welcome our insect overlords.
Oh my God! How do I
Jan,
respond
we can't actually play the audio from Simpson clips until the election is over because we're afraid of all our stuff getting yanked off YouTube. But I appreciate your attempt to insert them in regardless. I can't do the Kent Brockman voice, but everyone gets the reference. It's the Homer Goes to Space episode.
You know what I'm going to say? I don't know what you're talking about. but I appreciate the overtones on this. But what happens is it's like everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid. You know, we have 4 years which we can reference when bad legislation come in one after another. You had the Liberals introducing it under Kathleen Wynne. That was, we're going to screw the taxpayer. Legislation number 001. We're going to screw the taxpayers somehow. And then the PC says, well, we don't want to look like we're bad, so we're going to agree with them. And we're going to screw the taxpayer too. And we all curse them. Yet we have everybody lining up like there's some new epiphany going to happen. All the same players are there. All the people that voted to screw you over for 4 years are still there. And you're going to line up and support them again thinking there's some new epiphany, some new changes happen. There's no news. Shut up and take my money. That seems to be the new mantra of getting elected in Ontario. And you know, the weird part is so many people shut up, take their money and vote for them. That's where the people of Ontario fall to pieces. But the real problem is more than half the people aren't voting. They don't want the money. They want good government. They just don't see an alternate choice. And I'm here. The Trillium Party's here. We are an alternate choice. Come and support us. What have you got to lose? They'll offer you more money anyways. Maybe we'll offer some good government. Put a conscience in Queen's Park. You know, let us stand up. You know, okay, let's talk.
So you're not going to do the name change thing, but would you consider offering them money?
No, I think too often with healthcare, with transportation, with public projects, we think that giving them money is solving the problem. Anyone can write a check. A new idea is something really, really ingenious. How about when we put money into healthcare, getting a real solid big bang for our buck? Have a look at our healthcare plan. It involves smart chip technology. It works. It's been working in several other countries, all that have decidedly better healthcare systems than ours. And I'm sorry, Ontario, there are people out there, there are countries out there that have better healthcare systems than ours. We've been told since we were young. We've been told since we were young that we have the best healthcare in the world. Things change. We don't anymore. We just have an okay healthcare system.
Well, Bob, I heard there was a proposal to cover dental care as well. This would be an attempt to copy the English method, the UK system of having government-sponsored dentistry. And we all know that that's what made British teeth the straightest and whitest in all of the Western world.
If you think for one minute second I'm going to comment on that statement, then you are so wrong. You know, hey, I had a good time in England, okay? But I think your point is this. Dental care, should it be government paid? Maybe some portion of it. Do I think that there's so many other things that we are paying for?
No, okay.
Maybe shouldn't be.
In all seriousness, I don't know if you know anyone from the UK who's moved over here, but one thing that you'll get as a comment is, I can't believe how high quality the dental care is here, and how accessible it is, and how it's not really that unaffordable. It's not as expensive as you would think, because in England, it is relatively difficult to schedule an appointment to see a dentist. The quality of because of the government running the whole program, the quality of the people who go into dentistry, there's not as many high quality people as we have here. There's not as much competition.
Am I hearing that? Am I hearing properly, Greg? Am I hearing that you are saying, you're beating around the bush a little bit, but are you saying that private sector trumps public sector in almost every field?
Well,
in dentistry anyways.
Just in dentistry. I mean,
how about marijuana distribution?
Well, we won't know until we find out, Bob. That's why we have to try the LCBO model first, and then it'll be easy to get rid of when the time comes.
So if you have a candle over here and you stick your finger in it and it burns it, then I'm going to suggest to you that the candle that's burning over here, you have to stick your finger in that one over there to see if it's going to burn your finger?
Absolutely, Bob. And I want to take the analogy further and say that if you find yourself in a hole, the only thing you need to do is dig harder.
Well, welcome to Ontario politics. We are getting into a debt hole. We're paying like a third of our total taxes to maintain our debt right now. If we didn't have the debt, like somewhere in around the 60s, mid 60s. If we didn't have a debt load, we'd have a third more tax dollars to buy those important things: the health care, the quality roads, the affordable housing. You name it, the list could go on. Maybe we could dump a lot of money into cancer research. Maybe we could help mental distress that so many are having right now. So there's so many psychological problems out there, and it's being recognized more now. Maybe we could help that. In fact, the Trillium Party is the only party out there that wants to put a minister, make a new area, a new minister for mental health. And I'm sorry, we do need an example of what happened. Presumably happened yesterday in Toronto. What happens? I believe it's 10 people were murdered, and 15 or 16 were hurt by someone that just chose to do a heinous act. And our heart goes out to that. I just want to, without any joking aside, I want to say from the Trillium Party of Ontario that our heart goes out and our sympathy go out to the families and the families of all those people that were harmed or killed in that incident. So things are happening out there. We have to deal with it. Mental health is a good start for a lot of that.
Absolutely. And what's the Trillium Party's position when it comes to funding mental health services? Toronto has a mental health institution known as CAMH, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health. It's one of the most accessible and best staffed institutions in Canada, Ontario for sure.
We have a knack for saying that, don't we? No matter what we have on the end of our street, we say, it's the best in the world. Have you ever seen a patient that has a doctor, and they say, oh, I have the best heart specialist. Do you know how many best heart specialists there are? Every person that seems to have a doctor says we have the best. Maybe we don't have the best, but certainly let's look to see how we can make it better. Let's talk about the gas plant that was canceled by the Liberals. That's $1.6 billion to 2.2, 2.4. We're rounding off like $500 million here because no one's quite sure how much money it is. That can make a serious dent. So in one of the mental health things is right now autism is huge. It's a huge area of concern. I think we have 16,000 people in Ontario that suffer from autism of one form or another. That's 100,000. That one gas plant that no one can account for the money on $1.6 billion. What is that? That's $100,000 that could have been given to every single child that has suffered from autism. Come on, you don't think that would make a serious impact, a serious difference? We have to look at it seriously, and we have to allocate resources. Making these billion-dollar errors starts to add up to some serious money after a while, and you're forfeiting your future, you're forfeiting your kid's future, and you know what? I want some good times ahead of me. You know, I'm 58 years old. I don't think that I should write myself off here. I want a government that looks after me a little bit from this perspective. Allows me to have opportunity to go out there and create work, jobs, and stuff like that. But when I feel suppressed at every turn, it gets under my skin. Get out of my way.
You're 58? What's your secret? Do you clean living, diet, exercise?
Listen, I am heterosexual, Greg, so no need to go down that road.
Hey, you don't hashtag me too on your Twitter account, okay?
I don't even know what you're talking about. Hashtag schmashtag.
He's not kidding. I watched him try and send an email before the show.
We did it. As a team, we did it.
We did it as a team.
There were 4 of us that managed to link up the email in the office and made it work. Hey, that's what a group effort can do. We need to do more of that.
That's right. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Bob. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll bring in another Trillium Party candidate. This next guest will be Andre Imbeault. He's from Kingston and the Islands.
Oh, good. Okay, I think you're going to be impressed with Andre. Andre is he's working really hard out there in the Kingston Islands, and I talk to Andre quite often there. If there's somebody that really concerned about their riding constituents, it's Andre. Well, I think all Trillium Party candidates, but you'll get to. I'm going to enjoy listening in on that. Thank you,
Fantastic.
Greg.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you.
I'm joined by Andre Imbeault. Andre is the Trillium Party's own candidate for Kingston and the Islands. Andre, thank you for being a part of Trillium Talk TV.
Thank you, and thanks, Greg, for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about about my riding and about what we're doing down there.
Well, let's back it up a little further.
Sure.
Tell us about yourself a little bit.
So. So I'm.
So you're from Kingston?
I am. I'm from Kingston, born and raised. I was born in Kingston. I'm from a military family, so we did move around a little bit. I lived in Gander, Newfoundland for 7 years, and in '97 we came back to Kingston, and that's where I've lived ever since. I attended KCVI and afterwards attended Loyalist College in Belleville. I studied broadcast engineering, and I've been working in the radio broadcast industry for 7 years now as a technician.
Excellent. So, and you can answer a question I have. So,
Sure.
do radio stations pay royalties for the soundboards they use, or are those just like in the public domain now? Like, if I did want audio clips from the Trailer Park Boys and The Simpsons, could we have that in, or is YouTube just going to yank them?
So it's hit and miss. Those would definitely be copyrighted, and you couldn't use them without paying royalties. Others are royalty free. So,
is there a list somewhere that is accessible?
I'm sure you could find them.
Okay.
I don't think there's one master list, but generally, if it's a licensed TV program or TV character, then generally you wouldn't be able to use it.
Well, that's
unless you
a lot
wanted
of
to pay for it, of course.
Who's got the money for that? So what got you interested in politics?
So I've always followed politics. I've been interested in it since a fairly young age. I think it was in middle school, like grade 7, grade 8 type of thing, when I really started reading the newspapers, watching the news, and following local issues. And, as I progressed through high school and college, my interest furthered, and, I decided fairly young running for office is something I eventually wanted to do. Just to make a difference for the people in my community, because what I had started seeing was that, we'd have 3 or 4 candidates running, but they were all presenting some variation of the same message. And, as we got further and further along, especially in the past 5 to 10 years, what I've seen is that people have really started to feel disenfranchised with the entire political process. Just like I said, we have 4 variations of the same message being presented. So I just wanted to offer up something different, an alternative to the status quo, basically.
And something better. There's four of the same message. So PCs, NDP, Liberals, who's the
Green.
fourth? Green. They're the same.
More or less. They have some policy that falls in line with what we're doing, but they have others that fall in line with what the mainstream parties are doing. So again, it's a variation of the same message you're getting from the mainstream parties.
Now, unlike some PC candidates, it sounds like you really have some roots in the Kingston area. Your constituents, or your future constituents, I should say, have some unique interests, some unique needs. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I can't knock my local PC candidate as he is a longtime Kingstonian as well.
They didn't parachute someone with a famous dad in?
Absolutely not. So I can't knock them on that in my riding anyways. But we are fairly unique. We're a big government town. The three largest employers are government institutions. We have the Canadian Forces Base, Queen's University, which receives a lot of their funding from government. We have the local school board. The provincial government has a lot of staff in the Kingston area as well. So, public sector issues are a major component of what people are looking for. We also have 3 post-secondary institutions. We have 2 universities and a community college. So post-secondary education and all of the issues that go along with that, both from the point of view of faculty and students. Again, another really big issue. Queen's University employs a lot of people and also has somewhere in the neighborhood of 34,000 students. We have the Royal Military College and we have St. Lawrence College as well. So a good portion of our population is comprised of post-secondary students, and it's an issue that even if you don't necessarily have a connection to one of those 3 institutions, we're still talking about it because it impacts the community. I mean, we have 34,000 students at Queen's University alone, and that represents a lot of money being spent in the local economy.
Yeah, absolutely. You also have a penitentiary, right?
We have 8.
8 penitentiaries.
Yeah. Some of them are, there'll be 2 amalgamated into one facility, like Collins Bay and Bath Institution are in one facility, but they're technically 2 separate institutions because one is a minimum security and one's a medium.
And is Millhaven maximum one of them?
Millhaven is actually a super maximum. It's just outside of my riding. But we also have the former Kingston Penitentiary and the Regional Treatment Center, as you know, which closed in 2013. Mm-hmm. We have Joyceville Penitentiary and I believe it's Pittsburgh Institution. Again, they're amalgamated in one facility. That facility is just north of Kingston and still operating as well. So again, those institutions represent a large number of federal employees living and working in the area.
Oh yeah, so lots of government workers, and hey, they've put you on the map in at least one Tragically Hip song.
Yes.
So
actually, we've been on the map in several, but I think that's the one that everyone knows.
28 years old, never kissed a girl.
38 years old.
38 years old. Shows what I know.
So I see we have a question here from Tracy. I'm going to answer that one.
Let me just read out the question to everybody.
Sure.
So what issue is most concerning to Kingston citizens?
So at the I've been doing a lot of door knocking, especially over the past few weeks now that the weather's been cooperative. So I'm hearing of 3 major issues at the door. The first one is obviously hydro rates. I think all of our candidates are hearing about hydro. People have seen their bills double and triple over the past 15 years, and it's becoming unaffordable. People are seeing their utility bills triple in some cases. Meanwhile, their household income has increased, 2, 3, 4, 5%. So they're finding it harder and harder to keep up. The next one is healthcare. In addition to being a big university town, we also have a major regional hospital, KGH. We also have the brand new Providence Care facility, which is psychiatric as well as rehabilitation. So again, we have a large number of healthcare workers, a large number of physicians, nurses, PSWs, healthcare staff. So again, that's another major employer in town. As well, we have a large number of seniors in Kingston as well. So access to healthcare is obviously very important when you start reaching that age group. People want to make sure that the community they're living in has adequate healthcare available.
Absolutely. Now, what are your thoughts? What policies do you need to pursue through the Trillium Party to guarantee access to that sort of healthcare?
So one of the things we definitely plan on doing is eliminating the LHINs, the local health integration networks. So they represent $90 million annually of our healthcare budget. That $90 million could be better reinvested into hiring frontline staff, so hiring physicians, hiring nurses, hiring PSWs.
Now, can you just explain for those uninformed, which I am among them,
Sure.
What is a LHIN? What do they actually do?
So,
they're just the organizers of the healthcare network?
Sort of. So in theory, the way they're supposed to work is they administer the funding for the hospitals. So the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care provides a certain amount of money each year to the LHINs that they're then responsible for dispersing to the various hospitals. What ends up happening, though, is the LHIN is basically duplicating what the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care has already done. They're also duplicating what the hospital board of directors does. And meanwhile, as you know, when you're adding another agency, you're also adding expenses that go along with that. So you're adding staff, you're adding buildings, you're adding administrative costs. So that money that they've received from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, they're taking about 60% of that to cover their own administration expenses.
Well, with respect to your constituents or your future constituents who work in government, that's an old adage of government employment. Why hire one employee when you can hire two at twice the price?
So I think what will end up happening is we're definitely not going to be reducing jobs. You know, we're not the PCs. We're not about cleaning house and getting rid of everyone. I think under our healthcare plan, what you'll see happening at the end is our headcount actually increasing as we hire more physicians, hire more nurses, hire more PSWs.
So you want to increase employment, but amongst the people who do something productive.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense.
The priority we need to be looking at is service delivery, and are the people of Ontario getting the best possible service for their dollar?
Now, we've got another comment. How is your reception with people when you're door knocking?
It's actually very positive. A lot of curiosity about the party, but I'm also hearing a lot of, we can't vote Liberal again, but we don't want to vote for Doug Ford. We're not sure about the NDP, so we're looking for an alternative. And, I'm hearing that at probably every third house. And for those who don't know, Kingston has historically been a very, very Liberal riding. We've voted Liberal for, the past 3 decades. But now with everything that's happened in the past 15 years, you're seeing people start to seek out an alternative. Because, again, people are seeing their household expenditures go up disproportionately to their salaries. You're seeing cuts to the healthcare system. You're seeing student debt increase. You're seeing, the price of gas increasing, the price of groceries increasing. And people attribute that to government policy. So now they're looking for an alternative.
Now, so what are you and what are the Trillium Party doing to get your names out there? You as a candidate and the party as a whole, just to raise awareness about everything in the Kingston region.
So obviously a lot of door knocking. People love to stand on their doorstep and talk to the candidates about the issues that matter to them. So when I go to a door, I don't do a whole lot of talking at first. I introduce myself, I'm with the Trillium Party, and then I ask them, is there an issue that's really important to you? Because people love talking about their issue. Because to them, if they have an issue with hydro, or if they have an issue with the cost of living, or if they have an issue with healthcare, that is their most important issue. They don't necessarily care what I have to say about the rest of my policy, but if I'm listening to them and they feel like I can help them solve their problem, they feel a connection.
But with door knocking, you only interact with people one at a time.
Exactly.
Is there some sort of bigger event style?
So I'm glad you asked. So this Saturday, April 28th, myself and our neighboring candidate in Hastings, Lennox, and Addington, Lonnie Herrington, we're hosting a free chili dinner at the Amherst View Community Hall. So that'll be this Saturday from 4 to 8 p.m. at 108 Amherst Drive in Amherst View. Drop on by anytime between 4 and 8. Enjoy a bowl of free chili. There's no cost. There's no cost to get in. There's no cost for the food. Totally free. Just show up, enjoy some chili. I'll be there. Lonnie will be there. Our party leader, Bob Yaciuk, will be there. MPP Jack McLaren will be there. A number of other Trillium candidates will be there. So, come on out. You'll get the opportunity to meet us, get to know us, and find out what we're all about.
Well, now, so are there going to be people from other parties, maybe supporters of other parties or candidates from other parties?
Everyone's welcome. Everyone is welcome at this event. So we've actually extended invitations to the leaders of all of the other parties.
Okay, square with me. Are you planning on putting ghost peppers in Doug Ford's chili?
Absolutely not.
You hesitated for a second there. Doug, watch yourself. Oh, we've got another question. This one's from Laura Johnson-Sear. How would you go about stopping the foreign ownership of Ontario properties like some of the other provinces have done? I think this is specifically in reference to BC. I'm not sure if it was BC or Vancouver specifically that put in a surcharge on or a surtax on foreign property ownership.
So BC did do that. They imposed a foreign buyer's tax on real estate. And I think that's something we really need to look into in Ontario as well. Housing affordability is a big issue. Everyone talks about Toronto, but Kingston is also a very expensive market, especially for its size and considering the local economy. So a foreign buyer's tax would, it would help bring the housing market back under control by limiting speculators. Because a lot of these properties, especially in the GTA, we're not seeing it as much in Kingston right now, but particularly in the GTA, a lot of people are buying these properties and leaving them vacant in a lot of cases, hoping that the value will increase. And, what that's doing is it's driving Ontarians out of the housing market.
Well, absolutely. And in your estimation, some sort of surcharge on speculators or foreign owners, or what about a vacancy tax? If a property's left vacant, then there's extra taxes on it.
So, in actual fact, if you have a commercial property or a property that had been used as a rental prior to being vacant, currently the owner of that property can claim a tax credit for the lost income from that property.
Really?
So we can look at eliminating that provincially. Unfortunately, that's also a federal issue, because once you start talking about income taxes, the majority of that is federal. But at the provincial level, we can look into this as well and see what we can do on our end to eliminate that or to close that gap and make sure that that we're keeping the speculators under control and ensuring that housing remains affordable for all Ontarians.
That makes perfect sense. Well, thanks very much for being on the show. Our next guest, stay tuned. We have one more guest. Our next guest will be Lonnie Herrington, and he is from your neighboring riding,
Yes.
Hastings, Lennox, and Addington, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I'm now joined by Lonnie Herrington. Lonnie is the candidate for Hastings, Lennox, and Addington, neighboring riding to Kingston. Lonnie, thank you for being a part of TrilliumTalkTV.
Thanks for having me.
Now, just like with Andre, I want to start by asking you a little bit about yourself. So what is there for people to know about Lonnie Herrington?
What is there to know about Lonnie Herrington? I'm a business owner. I'm lifelong resident of the riding.
Oh, what sort of business do you own?
Construction.
Oh, okay.
Married, 4 children. Hugely political. Believe that Ontario is basically gone downhill to the point where it can't go any lower. And I think that my business acumen and experience is something that I can use in politics to help bring back Ontario.
Now, why did you get interested in, well, I guess you sort of answered that question at the end, but to flesh it out a little bit more, why are you interested in politics? What are your motivations behind running for the Trillium Party?
My biggest motivation is every time I look into the face of one of my children, I look at them and I realize that 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, what if things don't change now, what is there going to be for them then? People need to stand up for what we have in Ontario, what we used to have in Ontario. We need to stand up for one another, and we need to make sure that what we leave behind for our children and our grandchildren is better than what we got with the stuff that was left for us.
Now, what perspective do you bring to the table, having some experience in the construction industry and even owning a business? I specifically want to ask about our system for apprenticeship and skilled trades. A lot of people are confused about what the entry requirements are, how accessible a real career in these fields is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Ontario right now is falling behind in skilled labor as far as trades. For our youth and older individuals to get into the trades industries, it's timely, it's expensive, and it's a long period of time. Some apprenticeships are 6, 7, 8 years long, depending on which program they're in. With apprenticeship programs, they have to take in-school training, which in most cases is either out of pocket, or if it's funded through the ministry, they end up being taken out of their job, put on unemployment insurance for 6 or 8 or 10 weeks, whatever the course is, and then they go back to their job afterwards, but they've lost the experience, they've lost their income, they've jeopardized their quality of life for themselves and their families for that period of time. Apprenticeships, we need apprenticeships. We need hands-on skilled people in Ontario.
Now, what are some of the changes that you would make to the apprenticeship system? How could we improve things so that we're not suffering from a lack of skilled people?
From my experience, talking to many youth, many of the 16, 17, 18-year-olds in high schools, I get a lot of comments that we're bored with our classes. We're not going to go to school today, or we dropped out because we needed to get a job, or we needed just some excuse or another excuse. Unfortunately, we're losing students all the time from dropouts and their lack of interest in their classes at school. One of the policies with the Trillium Party is that we'll introduce the apprenticeship program into the high schools, so that when you're into grade 11 and grade 12, the qualification years, the decision years when you're in college, will actually gear your education to the career that you choose to be in, so that your education and your apprenticeship and your training is actually completed by the time you're 20 or 21 years old. You're in the workforce, you're providing for your family. Instead of, there's some students out there now that are 23, 24, 25 years old. They're losing years and years of their life on education, and then spending even more years to refund the system or pay back the debt that they've incurred by participating in the system, where the taxpayers of Ontario are already paying for the education system. Why aren't we utilizing it properly? It's there to help people learn, help people train, help people get into the workforce, but it's not working.
Now, aside from just introducing apprenticeship programs in high school, are there any other regulatory problems that we have with the apprenticeship system? I've heard, not necessarily from every industry in construction, but from some industries, that there's a real concern that you invest a lot of time with someone, a lot of time and money, getting them to journeyman status, and then they're able to essentially jump ship to another construction firm and make the big bucks. Is there anything we can do to make apprenticeships a little easier on the employer end?
From my own experience, I would have to say no. It's human nature to want to jump ship and to go to a different employer. In my industry, I've seen guys leave for 25 cents an hour and then jump back again for 25 cents more, 3 months later. People in Ontario are programmed to want to earn more money. They need to earn more money. The debt that we have in Ontario, the bills that we have and incur in Ontario, the prices that we pay for products in Ontario, everybody needs to earn more money. In my riding, the average income for my riding is under $40,000. At one point, it was one of the largest family per area ridings in all of Canada. There was my father's family had 18 children. My mother's had 12. And that's hereditary in the area. But now we're down to 1 or 2 or, maybe 3, but, let's kind of be cautious because we don't know what we're going to be able to do. We're not going to be able to feed. We're not going to be able to house. We're not going to be able to clothe. There's the riding is, every year, the riding is getting poorer and poorer. And it's upsetting because there's an abundance of good, hardworking people in Hastings County and Lennox and Addington County, but there's just no jobs there. The jobs are gone.
Oh, we've got a question from Facebook. What's the number one issue you hear from your future constituents?
Number one issue, like was alluded to by Andre, is hydro rates, the confusion around hydro rates. People are all very grateful that Kathleen Wynne and the Liberals, supported by their PC NDP supporters last fall, to give them a 25% break. But people are realizing that it was only temporary. It was only there to buy a vote. Vote for us, we'll give you 25%. And now people are realizing that come July, then numbers are going to go up, way up. And people are there. We have seniors in our community that are choosing between paying their hydro bill or eating. That's how bad it is. Like, hydro is number one. No, I had a huge conversation yesterday with a media personality out of Napanee who had no idea what the cost of windmills is costing the people of Ontario. These green energy contracts are bankrupting us, not our government, because to our government, we are their bank account. But to us, we're being bankrupt by these wind turbines, these solar fields, these green energy contracts.
And if the government is forced to borrow money to subsidize something, we're going to get the bill down the line. It's
our grandchildren. Yes, our grandchildren are going to pay for it. And right now, as it is, in Ontario, we're 315. There's a dispute over the number, but we all agree that it's somewhere around 315 billion. That equates to about $1,000 a year per taxpayer in Ontario that's paying interest alone on something that they didn't even spend. And our government just sits back, keeps cashing their paychecks, keeps running their constituency office, starts handing money off to parties for election campaign, and the people of Ontario are picking up the tab on everything, and it needs to stop.
Absolutely. Now, in your riding, is there any connection between high hydro rates and the scarcity of jobs? Was there a manufacturing base previously that's since moved away?
We've had Sears. We have Kellogg's in the Belleville area. In the northern parts of of Hastings riding, there is old gold mines that are not operating anymore. Cobalt mines that aren't operating anymore. Like, raw materials come out of Hastings County just about in every corner of the county. In Lennox and Addington, it pretty much the same. They were connected. The two original old ridings were connected, but they still share a lot of the raw materials resources that are there. sawmills, just about everything ran off electricity. And I would say yes, we're losing businesses because of our hydro rates.
Oh, we've got another comment also from Facebook. This one's from Jan Hansen. Is the Trillium Party against the environment? Don't wind turbines save the environment?
First part of the question, I would say no. We're not against the environment. I believe from conversations with our leader and the executive and the other candidates at Trillium that we are all for the environment. We all believe that we need to be 100% diligent about ensuring that our environment is taken care of, doing things properly, enforcing the rules, enforcing the laws, making sure that the emissions are reduced, talking to governments and other governments and municipalities and the people, most importantly the people, to say, hey, when we're gone, our children get this. And again, we need to leave this for them. It's got to be in better shape than it is. Right? Wind turbines? No. They are in no way beneficial to the environment. You can look around the world at different countries that have wind turbines. 20 years after they were installed, they're standing there idle. They're not turning. There's more carbon pollution produced by the manufacturer of these wind turbines than what they produce.
Another factor is that you only get power when the wind is blowing.
That's
so,
true.
Well,
True.
So predicting how much power you're going to have is a little bit like predicting the weather. Or it's a
Yes.
lot like predicting the weather. It basically is predicting the weather. The practical upshot of this is that for this to function with a normal power grid or even a smart grid, you need some sort of alternative that can kick in when the wind isn't blowing or not blowing strong enough, which you can't really do that with nuclear. You can't really do that with hydro. They're difficult to turn on and off. Without getting too technical.
That's the case that we have now. Our nuclear is running all the time. And like you said, we can't adjust it up or down because, the difficulty factor, which is causing us to end up with kilowatt after kilowatt being sold to the U.S. and to Quebec for less than what we're paying for it.
Well, so you know what they have to use for peaking when the wind is down is natural gas. That's why wind turbines actually, in a strange roundabout way, do contribute to carbon emissions.
Yes. But when you're talking about the gas plants, just in the last 6-7 months alone, we've seen that these foreign-owned entities are running our gas plants. Not all of them, to be clear, not all of them are foreign-owned, but we've had a couple of incidents in the last few months where information has been brought forward where hundreds of millions of dollars have been basically fraudulently billed to the province of Ontario that shouldn't have been billed. We have gas plants, actually we have one sitting in Napanee right now, barely even turns over. It's there, we're paying $14 million a year for it to sit there in case we need it. Ontario needs to look at realistic solutions. You brought up earlier about the issues of environment, the question was brought up. We need to look at our waste management in Ontario. We need to look at ways to reduce our carbon footprint, but we also need to figure out a way to provide electricity to the people of Ontario at a rate that the system was originally designed to be rated at. It's an at-cost system for the people. That's what Ontario Hydro was designed as. Hopefully, when I'm elected MPP, one of the things that I'm going to push for is to turn on these coal-fired plants that we have. They're sitting there, they're not doing anything. The Nanacoke mine was shut down, and if I remember right, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, they tore the multi-million-dollar stacks down that were just retrofitted with clean tech, which were connected to a brand new oven. We could have, instead of shipping our garbage to the U.S. or to Northern Ontario to bury, we could have incinerated it. We could have we could use the electricity from that to feed Ontario businesses at minimal cost, and at the same time provide a benefit to Ontario to clean up our environment, to clean up the garbage that we're filling up and ruining the price of our properties with. There's so many. The biggest problem with the province of Ontario right now and over the last 3 decades is the fact that the simple solutions are so simple that 3 decades of government can't figure it out. These three parties that have been there are so determined, and they're not dedicated to Ontario. They're dedicated to themselves. That's plain and simple. If they were dedicated to the people of Ontario, they would sit down and they would talk to the people of Ontario and come up with simple solutions to make things go now, properly. Get it done, get it cheap, build Ontario. Ontario is the driving force of Canada. And the way it is right now, we are losing our industry left, right, and center. Every time we have a trade deficit in this country, in this province with China, of $40 billion. We have 13.5 million people in this province and a $40 billion deficit. Donald Trump's talking about a $60 billion deficit with 365 million people. We have a $40 billion. Every time we send $1 billion worth of raw materials to China, we might as well just send 200 jobs with them. We send them $1 billion worth of raw materials. We send them $3 billion worth of raw materials. They're sending us $43 billion worth of product. Some studies are proving that 75% of our landfill garbage is stuff that's came from China.
And this is stuff that used to be built in Ontario.
All stuff that was built in Ontario. What's the biggest problem in Ontario? Why are we buying so much Chinese stuff?
Because we've shut down our own factories.
No. The fact of the matter is, the reason why we're bringing in so much Chinese stuff, and I'm not trying to be derogatory against the Chinese. Fact of the matter is, it's a market that they can utilize, because Ontario people say, if I can buy a $5 T-shirt from China over a $10 T-shirt made in America or made in Ontario, I'll buy the Chinese one because it looks exactly the same. The quality is not there, sure, but it still looks nice today.
Yeah, and there's other components like computer chips where you kind of have no choice but to buy from China. Depending on whether you think Taiwan is part of China or not. Oh, we don't have any fabs in Canada.
See, I've heard this question before. Or statements like this before. If you want something from technology, you need to buy it from Asian import companies. My answer to that is, who built the can arm?
Canadians.
Right. Where is the can arm?
United States.
Yeah, but what is it connected to?
Oh, the International Space Station.
Right. Is there anything on the International Space Station that says made in China?
No.
Exactly. We built it. We have the technology to build whatever we need to build. The biggest problem in Ontario is we've got a government that's so determined to control every aspect of everyone's life that they come up with regulation after regulation after regulation to impede and discourage business owners and corporations and manufacturers and industry to produce in Ontario. We have companies leaving Ontario left, right, and center, leaving the small business owner, the mom and pop shops. But they're losing it too, because we're losing out to places like, well, I'm not going to give names, but big box stores that are importing overseas products way cheaper and selling it to us than what we can manufacture it for because of regulations. Everybody, the biggest issue we've had recently is Bill 148. They want to talk about, it was all hyped up about minimum wage. The minimum wage is not really the issue. It's everything else that comes in it.
What's an example?
Everything else that comes in it. We got to pay for sick days for people. If for instance, I own a company. If I hire somebody on a Friday and say, you come to work on Monday, start here at 8 o'clock, and they call me at 7:45 and say, well, I had a domestic violence issue on Sunday and I can't make it. I technically have to pay them for the next 3 days at the wage that I agreed to pay them. We're giving people holidays. We're giving people days off. We're paying people to work.
Now, is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up? Why should the people of Hastings, Lennox, and Addington vote for you as opposed to PC or Liberal or NDP?
Well, let's put it this way. If you vote Liberal and you vote NDP, you're basically voting for the same one. The same party. You've got Liberal and then Liberal plus us. They want to spend your money. they want to spend your grandchildren's money, and they want to spend your great-grandchildren's money, all to make sure that they keep power. The PCs, well, we're not quite sure what they want to do. Historically, they used to take all your money and want to spend your money and then privatize everything so they can make more money, kind of like Hydro One, which is costing us about 400 times what it used to cost us because they split it up. But now with Doug Ford and his appointments and parachutes, and who knows what the PCs are going to be up to now. Trillium Party of Ontario, we believe in honest, real, effective, simple solutions that are not going to benefit us as the MPPs or us as the party. Our solutions are based on the best interests of the people of Ontario. So I ask that people of Hastings County support me, because I will go to Queen's Park and I will stand up for what's right for not only you, but for Ontario. And we will bring the jobs back to Ontario. We will stop the imports of countries that are undermining our ability. We will reduce these regulations that are stopping us. And the latest issue that's come up is our fuel pricing. We have a natural resource in our country that not only provincially but federally our government is trying to shut down. In the meantime, foreign governments are setting their chess pawns up to take over OPEC, raising their price. I read a letter last Monday that was sent to a local gas station. Esso Canada advised the owner of the gas station to acquire a loan to purchase fuel now, because Canada is presently in the midst of a fuel shortage, and they're expecting fuel prices to exceed $2.25 by July.
Wow.
That's like 3 months from now.
Just
Something's happening, and Canada is going to get it badly. And we need people in government that are going to stand up and say no. You've asked other candidates earlier tonight about foreign ownership. There should be restrictions. I believe there should.
It sounds like we need something different, something
We
better.
definitely need something different. Somebody with a set of kahunas. That's what we need.
Fantastic. And it sounds like you're the guy. Well, this has been Trillium Talk TV. He's Lonnie Herrington. I'm Greg LaRue. Have a good night.